Hello girls and boys, welcome back to Read Me a Story. I'm Pat Kozyra. I'm going to show you first my book. I'm the author. I wrote this one and it's called Tips and Tidbits for Parents and Teachers. So this is for Mommy and Daddy to read, and they can get it from AmazonBooks.com. It will tell them all about the things I learned in my 50 years in the classroom. Yeah. And it will help them to help you at home too. All right, and a special hello to my wonderful grandchildren, Max and Theo and Josephine, Charlotte, Penelope, and Simon. Simon, who's just turned 5, so we wish him happy birthday this week. All right, back to Pooh Bear, girls and boys. We've had a lot of requests for more Pooh Bear stories. So this is another request, and I'm very happy to read this one to you today. Tigger is Unbounced. And I want to show you the cover of this book because it has Tigger. And this is one of those books that moves. And it shows Tigger in all his bouncy ways, up in the air and down. You know what a problem it is with them not having to be able to stop him from moving. He's just bouncing around the 100-acre woods constantly. All right, so here we go with our story. Tigger is Unbounced. Can you believe that? Here we go. One hour. That's not an hour, that's hot. One hot summer day, Rabbit was talking to Pooh and Piglet. Pooh wasn't really listening. From time to time, he opened his eyes to say, "Ah." Rabbit said, "You see what I mean, Piglet?" And Piglet nodded to show that he did. "In fact," said Rabbit, "Tigger's getting so bouncy nowadays that it's time we taught him a lesson. Don't you think so, Piglet?" Piglet agreed. Tigger was very bouncy, and if they could think of a way to unbounce him, it would be a very good idea. "What do you say, Pooh?" asked Rabbit. Pooh opened his eyes and said, "Extremely." "Extremely what?" asked Rabbit. "Oh, what you were saying," said Pooh. "Undoubtedly." "But how shall we do it?" asked Piglet. "What sort of a lesson?" "Well, that's the point," said Rabbit. "What were we all talking about?" asked Pooh. Piglet explained that they were trying to think of a way to get the bounces out of Tigger, because however much you liked him, you couldn't deny it. He did bounce. "Oh, I see," said Pooh. He tried to think, but he could only think of something which didn't help at all. So he hummed very quietly to himself. "If Rabbit was bigger and fatter and stronger, or bigger than Tigger, if Tigger was smaller, then Tigger's bad habit of bouncing at Rabbit would matter no longer if Rabbit was taller." "Well, I have an idea," said Rabbit. "We'll take Tigger for a long explore, and we lose him. The next morning we find him again, and he'll be a different Tigger altogether. He'll be a humble Tigger, a sad Tigger, a melancholy Tigger, a small and sorry Tigger, and, oh, Rabbit, I'm glad to see you, Tigger." "That's why. I should hate him to go on being sad," said Piglet. "Tiggers never go on being sad," explained Rabbit. "But if we can make Tigger feel small and sad just for 5 minutes, we shall have done a good deed." So the only question was, where should they lose Tigger? "Well, we'll take him to the North Pole," said Rabbit. It was a long explore finding it, so it will be a very long explore for Tigger unfinding it again. Pooh felt glad. It was he who had first found the North Pole. So when they got there, Tigger would see a notice saying, "Discovered by Pooh. Pooh found it." And Tigger would then know what sort of bear he was. That sort of bear. So it was arranged, and they would start the next morning, and Rabbit would go and ask Tigger to come. Okay. The next day was quite a different day. Instead of being sunny, it was cold and misty, and Pooh felt sorry for the bees who wouldn't be making honey on such a day. Piglet wasn't thinking of that, but how cold and miserable it would be being lost all day and night on top of the forest on such a day. Rabbit thought it was just the day for them. As soon as Tigger bounced out of sight, they would hurry in another direction, and he would never see them again. "Not never?" said Piglet worriedly. "Well, not until we find him again," said Rabbit. "Come on, he's waiting for us." At Kanga's house, they found Roo waiting for them too. This made things very awkward. Rabbit whispered behind his paw to Pooh, "Leave this to me." "Roo had better not come today," he said to Kanga. "He was coughing earlier." "Oh, Roo, you never told me," said Kanga reproachfully. "Oh, it was a biscuit cough," said Roo. Not one you tell about." "I think not today, dear. Another day," Kanga said. "Ah, Tigger, there you are," said Rabbit happily. "All ready? Come on." So they went. At first, Pooh and Rabbit and Piglet walked together, and Tigger ran around them in circles. Then, when the path got narrower, Rabbit, Piglet, and Pooh walked one after another, and Tigger then ran round them in oblongs. And when the gorse got very prickly, Tigger ran up and down in front of them, and sometimes he bounced into Rabbit. And as they got higher and the mist got thicker, so Tigger kept disappearing and then bouncing back again. Rabbit nudged Piglet. "The next time," he said, "tell Pooh." "The next time what?" said Pooh. Tigger appeared, bounced into Rabbit, and disappeared again. "Now!" said Rabbit. He jumped into a hollow, and Pooh and Piglet jumped in after him. The forest was silent. They could see nothing and hear nothing. And then they heard Tigger pattering about. "Hello?" he said. And then they heard him pattering off again. They waited a little longer, and then Rabbit got up. "Well," he said proudly, "just as I said. Come on, let's go." They all hurried off, with Rabbit leading the way. "Well, why are we going along here?" said Pooh. "Because it is the way home," said Rabbit. "I think it's more to the right," said Piglet nervously. They went on. "Here we are," said Rabbit 10 minutes later. "No, we're not." "It's a funny thing," said Rabbit another 10 minutes later, "how everything looks just the same in a mist. Lucky we know the forest so well, we might get lost." Piglet sidled up to Pooh from behind. "Pooh," he whispered. "Yes, Piglet?" "Nothing," said Piglet, taking Pooh's paw. "I just wanted to be sure of you." When Tigger had finished waiting for the others to catch him up, they hadn't, he decided that he would go home. Kanga gave him a basket and sent him off with Roo to collect fir cones. Tigger and Roo threw pine cones at each other until they had quite forgotten what they had come for. They left the basket under the trees and went back for dinner. Just as they were finishing dinner, Christopher Robin put his head around the door and asked, "Where's Pooh?" Tigger explained what had happened, and Christopher Robin realized Pooh, Piglet, and Rabbit were lost in the mist on the top of the forest. "It's a funny thing about Tiggers," Tigger whispered to Roo. "They never get lost." "Well," said Christopher Robin to Tigger, "we shall have to go back and find them." Well, Rabbit, Pooh, and Piglet were having a rest in a sand pit. Pooh was rather tired of the sand pit, because whichever direction they started in, they always ended up in it again. "Well," said Rabbit after a while, "we'd better get on. Which way shall we try?" "Well, how about if we leave," said Pooh, "and as soon as we're out of sight of the sandpit, we try to find it again?" "What's the good of that?" asked Rabbit. "Well," said Pooh, "we keep looking for home and not finding it. So if we looked for the sandpit, we'd be sure not to find it, and we might find something we weren't looking for, which might be just what we were looking for really." "Try," said Piglet to Rabbit suddenly. "We'll wait here for you." Rabbit walked into the mist, and after Pooh and Piglet had waited 20 minutes for him, Pooh got up. "Let's go home, Piglet," he said. "There are 12 pots of honey in my cupboard, and they've been calling to me for hours. I couldn't hear them because Rabbit would talk, but if nobody is saying anything, then I shall know where they are. Come on." They walked off together, and for a long time Piglet said nothing, and then suddenly he made a squeaky noise, because now he began to know where he was. Just when he was getting sure, there was a shout, and out of the mist came Christopher Robin. "Oh, there you are," said Christopher Robin carelessly, trying to pretend that he hadn't been anxious. "Here we are," said Pooh. "Where's Rabbit?" asked Christopher Robin. "I don't know," said Pooh. "Oh, well, I expect Tigger will find him. He's sort of looking for you all," said Christopher Robin. "Well," said Pooh, "I've got to go home for something, and so has Piglet, because we haven't had it yet. And, oh, I'll come and watch you," said Christopher Robin. So he went home with Pooh and watched him for some time. Oh, look at him eating that honey. All the time Christopher Robin was watching Pooh, Tigger was tearing around the forest, making loud yapping noises for Rabbit, and at last very small and sorry Rabbit heard him, and the small and sorry Rabbit rushed through the mist at the noise, and it suddenly turned into Tigger, a friendly Tigger, a grand Tigger, large and helpful Tigger, a Tigger who bounced. And if he bounced at all, in just the beautiful way a Tigger ought to bounce. "Oh, Tigger, I'm glad to see you," cried Rabbit. And that is the end. And notice the little picture of the thistles. That's what Eeyore eats. And there's Bouncy Tigger. I think Rabbit regretted his plan, don't you? All right, girls and boys, that's the end of that story, and I was happy to reply to this request for these stories because they're wonderful. See you next time for another session with Read Me a Story. And don't forget, girls and boys, if you press Read More, you will see many more stories because I have downloaded so many for you now. Enjoy them all, and see you next time. Bye-bye.